After my boyfriend from the Beijing social circle left me on the mountain in the middle of the night for his first love, I faked my deaths. Since then, the cold and indifferent playboy has found mad for me. When we met again, I happened to be kissing that willful and proud man in the bar. His eyes turned red, looking sick and paranoid. You like someone like this? I'll change to be like him. Come back to me, okay? When Silas was accompanying me to watch the sunrise on the mountain, his first love who had depression called again. Silas, I'm sorry. I lost control again. There's so much blood. Silas' hand around my waist suddenly tightened. I'll go back right away. Don't do anything stupid. Wait for me. After hanging up the phone, his gaze on me froze slightly. There was apology in it, but it was quickly drowned by worry. Yuri is having an episode. I have to go back. Let's watch the sunrise next time. Can't you not go? I said disappointedly. This is the 5th time this month. It was okay before, but today is my birthday. Besides, Yuri's parents are there. At worst, we can watch the sunrise first and then I'll go with you. Cherry. Silas frowned and interrupted me, looking at me disappointedly. We can watch the sunrise at any time. Don't you know that she might die when her depression acts up? I knew that. But every time Yuri had an episode when I was on a date with Silas, it was hard for me not to suspect that she did it on purpose. Because of her, I had quarreled with Silas countless times, and every time it ended with me compromising. This time, I didn't want to compromise. I looked at the boundless dark mountain and didn't move. I want to watch the sunrise. If you want to go to her, then go back first. It seemed that I was deliberately forcing him to make a choice, to choose between me and his first love. The atmosphere froze instantly. Silas' face turned cold. With a cold and heartless look. Do you have to make a fuss at this time? I felt cold all over. It was summer. But it felt like ice was running through my body. I opened my mouth, but before I could say anything, Silas' phone rang again. He answered it, and his face changed drastically. Then he left straight away. Silas. I watched his disappearing back, and a dense pain spread in my heart. This is the 52nd time you left me for her. From now on, I'll never give you such a chance again. I met Silas in the 3rd year of junior high school. My mother worked as an Annie in Yuri's family, and I lived in Yuri's family with her. The two families were not far apart. Because of this, I met Silas and fell in love with him. Silas was the heir of the Silas family in the Beijing social circle. I was attracted to him and chased after him for 5 years. I got the same tattoo as his. I would bet with others and drink until I had stomach bleeding just for him. I would also run across half of the city and queue for hours in the cold winter to buy him the crabro buns from his favorite store, just because of a word from him. Everyone knew that I was chasing him. His friends said I was a bootlicker and even bet on how long it would take for Silas to agree to be with me. Silas was cold and indifferent. He didn't care about anything, nor did he care about me. Until the 3rd year of college, Silas seemed to have changed. He began to send me messages frequently and share his daily life with me. I thought that I had finally waited for the good times. But when we met after the semester ended, Silas was back to normal. Cold and distant, as if the person who had sent me messages during those days was someone else. I couldn't help it and went to ask him what was going on. But I saw him appear in Yuri's family. He had a conflict with Yuri. Was soaked all over, had blood on his hands, and looked so down and out, completely different from his usual self. I felt heartbroken and worried and checked his wounds for him. Do you like me? Suddenly, Silas turned his head to look at me, with a light in his eyes that I couldn't understand. It wasn't a secret anyway. So I nodded in a flustered manner. I didn't have time to figure out why he, whose family had always been at odds with Yuri's family, and had no contact with them, showed up in Yuri's family and even lost control in front of Yuri. Then let's be together that summer vacation. I officially became Silas' girlfriend. Coming back to my senses, Silas disappeared with his car. The mountain wind was howling, and it was so dark around as if it was going to swallow people up. I wrapped my clothes tightly and turned on the flashlight to go down the mountain. When I got to the mountain road, I found that it wasn't the road we took to go up the mountain. I was lost. The mobile phone signal was intermittent. I realized it later and started to be afraid. Just then, a taxi came from not far behind. A car came closer and closer and closer. But instead of going forward, it stopped beside me. The car window was rolled down, and the fat male driver stuck his head out, looking lecherous. Girl, having fulfilled my adsecher. Are you alone? Where are you going? Get in the car and I'll give you a ride. A strong smell of alcohol hit my face. I ignored him and pretended to be on the phone while holding my mobile phone. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw the male driver staring at me, so I walked in the opposite direction. But the next moment, the taxi backed up and stopped steadily beside me. The driver unbuckled his seat belt and got out of the car at that instant. My fear reached its peak without thinking. I started to run. The driver looked around and then chased after me. Just when the driver was about to grab my hair, a car rushed over. I rushed towards it. The car was forced to stop, and the screeching sound of the brakes was sharp and ear-piercing. Damn it. Cherry? The man in the Bentley Continental got out. He was tall and had a flamboyant appearance. It was Asher. Asher was Silas' roommate and brother. These two were known as Nan Chibi Yan in the capital city. Asher glanced in the direction I came from, and his eyes immediately became fierce and gloomy. He pulled me behind him. Did he touch you? I shook my head and his face seemed to ease a bit. But his tone was still cold. Get in the car. After saying that, he strode over. I grabbed his sleeve. The relief of surviving the disaster made me tremble all over. Don't go over. He's drunk. Let us call the police and let them handle it. Are you asking me to ignore it when you were almost bullied? No man can stand this. If you can't leave, just wait for me. Asher rolled up his sleeves to his forearms, revealing his solid muscles. He walked forward a few steps and kicked the man. The other guy didn't seem to expect Asher to be so wild. He was stunned for a moment when Asher started hitting him without saying a word. Then he immediately got up, cursing dirty words, but soon he was kicked down again. Asher's face was gloomy. With undisguised violence on him, he beat the man overwhelmingly, pinned him against the car, and the other guy had no power to fight back. I saw the male driver take out his mobile phone and make a call. Then Asher let the man go and came back. Can you walk? Yes? I hadn't seen Asher fight before, but I had heard of it. This guy was so proud that he seldom took action since he saved me. I was grateful to him. Thank you. Asher. Asher raised his eyebrows, looking teasing. What? Do you want to introduce a girlfriend to me again? Asher and Silas were in the same social circle. The difference was that Asher was really a tough guy. He was the only heir of the Kai family. The two had different personalities. Asher was flamboyant, willful, rebellious and arrogant, and he had many friends. I could barely be counted as one of them. I also went to Asher's coming-of-age ceremony. The 18-year-old Asher was lazily leaning against the railing, with an aura that was a mix between a teenager and a mature man, sexy and wild. Really charming. Am I good to kiss? Where are you touching? Do you want me to show you the way? I'm not pure anymore. What are you going to do about it? I just tripped a little, and I blushed and apologized. He looked at me with half-closed eyes. That's it? Do you want me to introduce a girlfriend to you? He looked amused. Okay. The next day at midnight, I met him in a convenience store. He was holding a box of the smallest size of condoms in his hand. I couldn't help but think of the rumors in the circle as her. It was said that he was impotent. I was afraid of being silenced, so I avoided him ever since. Not long after that, I got together with Silas and Asher. Probably because he minded that I had discovered his secret, completely cut off contact with me. Even Silas was affected because of me. When we met, we were as strange as passers-by. The heater in the car was turned on full blast. When I felt warm, I felt that I had come back to life. Thank you so much. I'll treat you to dinner another day. What about him? Asher was holding the steering wheel, his knuckles turning white. He was really moody. I didn't know what I had said wrong to make him unhappy again. Is he dead or disabled? In the middle of the night Silas just left you alone on the mountain? No. Do you still like him that much? Asher impatiently interrupted me and stepped on the accelerator. The scenery on both sides quickly moved backward. Are you still defending him? Have you ever thought about what would have happened if I hadn't taken this road? I wasn't defending him. I just felt a bit embarrassed to say that my boyfriend had left me for another woman. This kind of thing had happened more than once, but I was like a bootlicker, choosing to forgive again and again. My mobile phone rang once. I quickly checked it when I saw that it was a spam message. My heart sank. Even at this time, I still had expectations for him. Silas was my emergency contact. Just now in the critical moment, I accidentally pressed the power button, and the distress message and location were automatically sent to him. An hour had passed, but he hadn't called or sent a text message. I pressed my aching stomach. I've thought about it, so I don't want such a lousy boyfriend anymore. When I got back to the urban area, it was already 10 o'clock in the morning. I fell asleep in the car, covered with Asher's suit jacket, which had a faint woody fragrance. Awake. A deep magnetic voice came. Your phone has been ringing all the time. I took it out and took a look. There was only 3 of the battery left, 58 missed calls, and a bunch of text messages. They were not only from Silas, but also from some of my friends. Cherry, where are you? Call me back when you see the message. Cherry, this game isn't fun at all. Answer the phone. I'm sorry, really sorry, Cherry. I didn't mean to ignore your message. Please show up, okay? I was completely confused. Asher tapped on his phone a few times and handed it to me. A piece of local news rushed to the top of the hot search. A couple went to watch the sunrise after getting separated. The girl got lost and fell off a cliff. Her whereabouts are still unknown. Coincidentally, the location was exactly where Silas and I had gone. And there was a forgotten bag at the scene. They thought that something had happened to me. Just then, Silas called again. The ringing was urgent, but I didn't move at all. Aren't you going to answer it? If it hadn't been for you last night, I might have also been in trouble. Since that's the case, let's just make him think that I'm dead. I had chased after him for so long. I was fed up. I wanted to live a life without Silas. Of course. Secretly, I wanted him to regret it. He's almost searched the whole Zhongcheng for you and even drove up the mountain at high speed looking for you inch by inch. He probably hasn't come down yet. Are you really not going to tell him? In my relationship with Silas, I was always the more active one. He could control his feelings freely. And I was always the one who was worried about gains and losses. Once upon a time, I hoped that he would care more about me. Now that it had finally come true, I didn't want it anymore. No need. How cruel. I wasn't sure if it was an illusion. But when Asher said this, the corner of his mouth seemed to curl up a little. I smiled bitterly. If you had the chance. No, you probably wouldn't have the chance to experience how I feel now. Not necessarily. Asher looked at me. Having been treated badly by a scumbag, does that count as experiencing it? When I got back to my rental house, I just realized it. Although Asher and Silas aren't in contact now, they've known each other since childhood. Will he tell Silas that I'm still alive? After thinking it over, I gave him a call. It took Asher a long time to answer. Hello, Cherry? I was a bit surprised that he actually knew my number. He should be in a bar. The heavy metal music was deafening. Regarding my business. Could you please not tell Silas about it? What business? Pretending to be dead. Asher must have walked outside as the background noise wasn't that loud anymore. What's in it for me? Asher has everything he wants. I couldn't think of what benefit I could offer that would catch his eye. What do you want? Then you owe me one. I'll ask you for it another day. He hung up the phone. I took the opportunity to click into the call records. Among many missed calls, my mother had only called once. There were also several unread voice messages from her. Are you happy only when you dried Yuri to death? You just missed a sunrise. But Yuri had an illness attack. Was it so hard to let Silas come back to accompany Yuri? Do you have to make such a big fuss? Are you satisfied now? Silas left Yuri and searched all over the city for you. Yuri was getting better. But because of you. She's on the verge of an emotional breakdown and has taken pills and is in the emergency room. If something happens to her, 10 of your lives won't be enough to make up for it. Come back quickly and apologize to her. Look at that. This is my mother. Maybe if something really happened to me one day she would think I was just making trouble. When did she stop loving me? It seemed to be after she went to work as an nanny for Yuri's family. Whenever I had a conflict with Yuri, regardless of who was right or wrong, she always asked me to unconditionally apologize to Yuri. Yuri and I were in the same grade. If I scored higher than her in exams, Yuri's father would be disappointed in Yuri, so even though I had good grades, my mother never allowed my scores to exceed hers. I performed normally in the college entrance examination and didn't hold back my scores. I got 708 points, which should have been a great thing worth celebrating. But just because Yuri didn't do well in the exam, My mother didn't allow me to celebrate, she even asked me to apply to an ordinary university for fear of stimulating Yuri. That time, I had a big fight with her. I rented a small single room outside by myself and started working part-time jobs with my bonuses. I didn't ask her for living expenses even once during my 4 years in college, and she never came to see me either. Later, when I was with Silas, she came. I was overjoyed, thinking that she finally remembered me as her daughter. But what awaited me was her becoming even worse. Cherry, are you a mistress? Don't you have any sense of shame? You're stealing Yuri's boyfriend. Break up with Silas immediately. You're a servant. And she's the master. How can you compare with Yuri? Are you worthy of Silas? I once told you not to compete with Yuri. You should listen to whatever she says. Have you just ignored my words? She didn't seem like my mother, she was more like Yuri's mother. I cancelled my mobile phone card. Got a new one, took a leave, and went traveling. The scenery in the south of the Yangtze River is beautiful, and the sunset in Dunhuang is magnificent. During the trip, my colleagues chatted with me and mentioned Silas' situation. Some passers-by took videos of Silas drinking heavily because of me and looking really disheveled. The videos were quite popular. This is definitely a love that even death would envy. Good heavens. Look at what you're doing. Help. Will he never be able to go mountain climbing again? My friend complained. He's really crazy. I heard that he doesn't allow others to mention your name. He gets agitated whenever someone does. A few days ago, he was drag racing, drinking heavily, and searching for you like crazy. In these days, he's been living a reverse day and night life. Staying in the bar all the time and looking at your photos on his phone. Say he doesn't love you, but he's gone mad. Say he loves you, but after being with you for so long, he didn't even know where you worked at. It's really ridiculous. The cool and indifferent playboy has gone crazy because of me. But it's too late. 3 months later, I went back. As soon as I got home, I received a call from Asher. Sister-in-law, Asher is drunk. He's at 0 Degree Bar. Come and pick him up. Did he make a wrong call? Soon, make a wrong call? Asher's voice came through. It's time to pay off your debt, Cherry. He sounded clear and smooth as he had drunk some wine. Do you want to play the role of my girlfriend? Are you up for it? I wasn't coy. For how long? The other side seemed surprised that I agreed so readily. He smiled deeply and said, it depends on when my old man stops arranging blind dates for me. Okay. Then could you please come and pick up your boyfriend? They're all my friends, and they don't know Silas well. He added this sentence. Actually, I didn't care anymore. Sure, but I just got home and need to tidy up a bit. Is it okay to meet in 40 minutes? Okay. 15 minutes later, when I went downstairs, I saw Asher lazily leaning against a Lamborghini. He had a narrow waist and long legs, and there was a cigarette between his fingers. The street lamp cast a soft light on his face, making him look elegant and handsome, attracting the attention of passers-by. Why are you here? To pick up my girlfriend. Is there a problem? He made it sound like I was really in a relationship with him. In the next second, I frowned. Are you drunk driving? No, I hired a designated driver, so you'll have to drive later. It would have been better if I had just taken a taxi myself. After the car stopped steadily, on the way in, Asher told me the general situation. He was being urged to get married by his family like crazy. Asher was impatient and simply made up that he had a girlfriend, so he came to me to put on an act. Let's make it clear first. If your old man hits people, I'll hide. Asher was amused by me. Okay. Hide behind me. I'll protect you. Asher had quite a few friends, 7 or 8 of them. One of them with blonde hair looked excited when he saw me. Are you sister-in-law? Probably, yes. He called me so directly that I felt a bit embarrassed. Damn it. He was so excited that his face twisted. Brother. My brother. Isn't this the same as you back then? Ouch. Asher kicked him and gave a warning look. Shut up. What back then? I asked. Asher stared at me, his eyes deep. Just as he was about to speak, he pulled me into his arms by the waist, helping me avoid a wine bottle that slipped from a passing waiter's hand. I smelled a faint scent of alcohol on him. I subconsciously looked up. His Adam's apple protruded and moved up and down regularly. Suddenly, I remembered the rather unrestrained topics among friends. By looking at the Adam's apple, you can tell something about a person. Oh, Look at Asher's eyes, he looks like he wants to devour sister-in-law. He's a 25-year-old bachelor. Let's understand him. I blushed and pulled myself out of Asher's arms, as her probably didn't like this kind of joke. His face didn't look too good. Take good care of her. I'm going to the toilet. Sister-in-law, have a drink. The blonde-haired guy was very enthusiastic. I have a low tolerance for alcohol. I'll get drunk with just one sip. You won't get drunk with just one sip. Seriously, I've never seen anyone who gets drunk with just one sip. This wine has no alcohol content, trust me. Sister-in-law. I believed him. 10 seconds later, I was drunk. Everyone at the table was like my brother when Asher came back and saw the blonde-haired guy sitting next to me. His face immediately darkened. Did you guys give her alcohol? We're wrong, we didn't know sister-in-law would get drunk like this. I looked at Asher with bright eyes and said in a flirtatious tone, you look a bit familiar. I allow you to sit next to me. Asher was both angry and amused. Just sitting next to you isn't enough, how about you sit on my lap? Okay. Everyone burst out laughing as her held my waist tightly and didn't let me move. If I had known you'd act like this when drunk, I shouldn't have brought you here. What? Do you want to kiss? How embarrassing. With that, I quickly kissed him on the cheek as her froze. Asher, how can you bear this? Have you given up drugs? Shut up, all of you. Cherry? Just then, a shocked and disbelieving voice came before I could see clearly. I was pulled over with great force. It was Silas. He reeked of alcohol, his eyes were bloodshot, and he looked so disheveled that he was completely different from his usual cool and indifferent appearance. You're not dead? You're alive. He reached out his trembling hand and touched me carefully. I subconsciously avoided it. It's really you. The bright light burst out in his eyes, and there was a look of ecstasy on his face as if he had regained something precious, and he hugged me tightly. Silas. Let me go. I sobered up a lot. No, I'll never let you go again. He tightened his grip inch by inch, and I couldn't break free at this moment. There was a light knocking sound of knuckles on the table from behind. Silas, didn't you hear my girlfriend asking you to let her go? Asher's tone was calm, but there was an unfathomable undercurrent in his peach blossom eyes. Silas' body stiffened, and I took the opportunity to break free. Girlfriend? He looked at me in disbelief. His voice hoarse. Are you two together? In the next second, he immediately refuted it. With a confident look in his eyes, as if he was sure of victory. Cherry has loved me for 5 years. If she liked you, she wouldn't have waited until now. So, he knew that I had loved him for so long? All my efforts over the years seemed like a joke. You're angry with me, right? You're angry that I left you and went to Yuri taking revenge on me. Silas smiled, self-deprecating lie. You've won. I admit that I care about you a lot. Come back with me, okay? I had been with Silas for so long, he could control his emotions freely, and was always hot and cold towards me. I had never heard him say that he cared about me personally. Now that I heard it, it only reminded me of how I had once offered my pride to him to trample on. I have a new boyfriend. If you didn't hear clearly, you can go to the hospital to check your ears. I turned around and walked away, but Silas grabbed me. I don't believe it. Didn't you see it clearly just now? Would I have kissed him just to anger you? Besides, I didn't know you were here. I shook off his hand and walked to Asher's side. Asher was indeed a good actor and got into the role quickly. He affectionately put his arm around my waist, and his eyes on me were burning with passion. It seemed like I was the most precious thing in his heart. I couldn't handle it, so I simply leaned against his chest. I cleared my throat and said, Asher. I want to leave. Asher's body froze unexpectedly, his eyes were as black as ink, and he stared at me tightly. Suddenly, he pinched my earlobe. When he looked at Silas again, his eyes became much colder. Silas, this is my place, and she's my person. Don't go too far. You know that I don't have many scruples. Silas' face instantly became extremely ugly. Asher, we haven't broken up. Are you really going to interfere and be a mistress? The one who isn't loved is the mistress. Silas asked Asher to have a private talk. After all, it was originally between me and Silas. Involving Asher in this for no reason made me feel quite guilty. Sister-in-law, don't worry. Brother Kai. There's a fight outside. I rushed out quickly. Silas had a black eye. And Asher's mouth was bleeding. You knew clearly that she was my girlfriend. But you took advantage of the situation. Asher. If I had known this would happen today, I shouldn't have told you. Too late. Asher interrupted Silas' words. These words seemed to enrage Silas. He straightened up and punched Asher hard in the face. Enough. I stepped between the two of them and forced Silas to stop his actions. The look in his eyes as he stared at me gradually became desperate. Are you protecting him? On the mountain that day? Right after you drove away. I sent you a message to break up if you didn't delete it. There should be a record on your phone. We've already broken up. It's my freedom to be with whoever I want. I didn't see it and I didn't agree. It doesn't count. Cherry. I don't agree to break up. That's your business, let us go. The last sentence was said to Asher. Asher called a designated driver, and I got in the car with him when the car turned a corner. I saw Silas' car in the rearview mirror. Asher saw it too obviously. He was verifying the accuracy of what I had said. Cherry. Asher suddenly looked at me, with complex emotions intertwined in his charming peach blossom eyes. Are you really sure you don't want to continue with him? No, I don't. Okay. He smiled. It's still early. If you don't mind, come to my place for a cup of tea. Will it bother you? No, it won't. I followed Asher home. Asher's house was big. And its decoration style was simple yet elegant. Young master, you're back. How did you get hurt? Who hit you? It's just a minor injury. It doesn't matter. Cherry. This is Aunt Wu. She used to work for the old master. Aunt Wu. This is Cherry. My girlfriend. Aunt Wu was stunned when she saw me and then handed me a pair of slippers after I changed into them. She suddenly said, Cherry. You're the first woman the young master has brought home. Asher paused in his steps and turned his head helplessly. Aunt Wu. Don't read so many novels. Aunt Wu said oh, and then continued, I'm not wrong, am I? Can't I say that? But I still have a line that I haven't said yet. I've practiced it hundreds of times in my mind. It's not easy to have this chance. Cherry. What would you like to drink? Just water will be fine. I followed Asher inside. After hesitating for a while, I turned around and asked, Aunt Wu, I'd like to ask, what's that line that you haven't said yet? You can't know it now. I turned around and met Asher's teasing eyes. I felt a bit embarrassed. I was just asking. What novel is Aunt Wu reading? Why don't you ask me? Do you read it too? The Beloved Wife is on top. Don't love too much, cold young master. I looked shocked. You read this? Aunt Wu likes to listen to novels while cooking. By the way, where's the medicine box at home? You should put some medicine on your wound. It'll heal faster. Asher took it out from the drawer and sat on the sofa to apply the medicine for a long time but didn't do it properly. I couldn't bear to watch it anymore. Let me do it. At first, I didn't notice anything, but when I sat face to face with him and a fresh scent on him wafted over, like a net that surrounded me tightly, I felt a bit out of breath. We were too close. My heart was beating fast, and my thoughts were a bit chaotic. Suddenly, my wrist was grasped, and I looked into Asher's deep eyes. He had such beautiful eyes that when he looked at you, it seemed as if there were infinite affection in them. After looking at each other for a moment, just when I couldn't bear it and was about to look away, the strength in his hand increased. He pressed the cotton swab hard against the corner of his mouth. Here. His voice was low and hoarse, and the air around seemed to become warm, making my face feel hot. Just for a moment, Asher let go of my hand and leaned back lazily. The ambiguous atmosphere disappeared instantly. It's getting late. I should go back. I'll see you off. As soon as we went out the door, we saw Silas standing at the door with a cigarette in his hand. I stayed at Asher's house. Aunt Wu had prepared a guest room for me. It rained at night, and the sound of the rain grew louder. I tossed and turned in bed and couldn't fall asleep. 10 minutes later, I went to the terrace. The terrace faced the main entrance. Clearly visible under the street lamp at the entrance was Silas, who was soaked through by the rain. In my memory, he had never been so down and out and humble before. Do you feel sorry for him? Asher didn't know when he had come. His eyes were dim in the night. No. Put on your shoes first. Asher was holding a pair of slippers in his hand. I reached out to take them, but he crouched down. Left foot. Realizing that he was going to put on the slippers for me, I quickly refused. No, I can do it myself. It's just a boyfriend putting on shoes for his girlfriend. He held my foot and placed it on his knee, then wiped it dry with a handkerchief. There were calluses on his hands, rough and obvious. The strange touch spread from the soles of my feet to all over my body. I didn't feel cold anymore. All done. He looked up and met my gaze. The wind was howling, blowing the leaves and blocking the light on the terrace. Even the light in his eyes seemed to flicker on and off. "Thank you," as her curled his lips, stood up, and suddenly said, "He's gone." I followed his line of sight and looked outside the door. Only then did I understand that he was talking about Silas. The entrance was empty, there was no sign of him. Well, someone as cold and indifferent as him had already reached his limit after waiting for so long. From now on, he probably wouldn't pester me anymore. I'll go to bed first. I went back to the room and washed my face. The heat on my face hadn't gone away. I lay down on the bed and then got up again. Wait. We're just a fake couple. Why is he being so serious? I couldn't fall asleep even more. The next day, I got up very early. Unexpectedly, Asher got up even earlier. He was wearing a set of casual home clothes and was making breakfast in the kitchen. I was shocked. "I thought you couldn't cook," as her teased me. "Did you also think that I was so high and mighty that I didn't need to eat earthly food?" Yes, j'avais fulfilled my obsession. But I didn't dare to say it. Asher seemed to be able to read my mind. "Cherry, I'm a human being. And I also need to eat." Help me roll up my sleeves. "Okay." My fingers unavoidably touched his arm. And my fingertips felt hot. "Cherry." Just then, Asher suddenly lowered his head and called my name. His voice was low, and his tone had an indescribable flavor. "Why don't you try to get to know me?" I fled in a panic. As soon as I walked out of the kitchen, I bumped into Aunt Wish. She looked relieved. It's the first time I've seen the young master smile so happily. Help. When I got back to the room, I came to my senses. Was I being too self-absorbed? It must be. How could Asher have that kind of meaning? After adjusting my mood, I packed my things and planned to say goodbye. When I passed the bedroom next to the stairwell, a painting caught my eye. It was a girl wearing a white dress, with her back facing as she crouched by the seaside. And there was a bunch of fireworks going off beside her. Could Asher draw? I remembered the scene when I accidentally saw Asher buying condoms that year. This must be a girl he used to like. That's nice. I went downstairs. Asher had already finished making breakfast. Coincidentally, they were all my favorite foods, but I didn't have much of an appetite. I made up an excuse that I had something to do and left first. When I got back to my rental house, there was a person squatting at the door. It was my mother. She seemed to have been waiting for a long time. When she saw me, she rushed over angrily and slapped me across the face. "Are you satisfied? Are you happy? You're addicted to faking death. Why don't you just die outside? You're a curse because of you. Silas has completely ignored Yuri. She's almost couldn't hold on several times. Her illness has just gotten a little better. Do you want to drive her to death? Why isn't it you who's sick?" My cheek was burning with pain. I felt like my heart was being cut by a knife. Before I would still look for the answer to why she didn't love me, and whether I hadn't done well enough. Now, I didn't even want to know the reason. I wiped away my tears and said calmly, "Sorry to disappoint you. I'm living a good life." I took out my key to open the door. My mother grabbed my hand. "Come back to Yuri's family with me. No matter what method you use, you have to apologize to Yuri." "I won't go." "You ate at Yuri's family and drank at Yuri's family. Without Yuri's family, how could you be what you are now? Don't you have a conscience?" "I don't owe Yuri's family anything. After high school, not only did I have to clean the house, but I also had to help in the kitchen. Even Yuri's clothes that couldn't be washed in the washing machine were washed by me. I worked hard. And I just enjoyed what I deserved. After college, you didn't give me a penny, and neither did Yuri's family. All my living expenses and tuition fees were earned by myself. Is it me who owes Yuri's family or you? Helen, sometimes I really don't understand. Yuri is just the daughter of your employer. You treat your own daughter harshly for her sake. Does your conscience allow it? Or am I not even your biological daughter?" My mother stared at me with wide eyes in disbelief. The next second, she raised her hand to hit me again, but I grabbed her wrist and pushed her away. I was depressed for a week when I pulled myself together. I called my best friend of many years. "Have you thought it through? Do you really want to open your own studio? Let's give it a try. I don't expect to make a lot of money. I'll be okay as long as it's better than working for others." It doesn't matter if I fail. I'm all alone and don't have any worries. At worst, I'll start all over again. My best friend paused for a second. Is your mother still treating you like that? Yes. Why don't you go for a DNA test? You've read too many novels. Okay. I won't joke with you anymore. I'll be there the day after tomorrow. After hanging up the phone, I remembered that I hadn't contacted Asher for several days. I clicked on his WeChat but didn't know what to say, so I just gave up. I went to the supermarket to do some shopping and met a blonde guy. Sister-in-law. He was very enthusiastic. It's me. Tim Asher is sick. He has a fever if you have time. Go and persuade him he's still working hard at the company. Is he seriously ill? Yes. He's been like this since he was a kid, he's so stubborn. What we say is useless, he'll definitely listen to you. Sister-in-law. I thought to myself that I might not be as influential as you guys thought. Come on, let's go. I'm on my way. I can give you a ride. With that ride, he took me directly to the downstairs of Asher's company. Since I was already here, I didn't feel right to go upstairs rashly. So I simply sat in the coffee shop downstairs, ordered a bouquet of flowers. And also bought a thermometer and some fever medicine and sent them upstairs. 40 minutes later, Asher called. How did you know? I ran into Tom. Take the medicine and have a good rest. If you still don't feel well, go to the hospital. Turn around, huh? I looked back suspiciously as her was standing not far behind me. Dressed in a suit. I got up and ran over to him. Why did you come downstairs? Didn't you tell me to have a good rest? Let's go, accompany me to sit in the park for a while. He didn't look well and seemed a bit sick after entering the park and finding a cool place to sit down. I felt a weight on my shoulder as her breath was right in front of me. I froze. Don't move. He adjusted to a more comfortable position, resting his head on my shoulder. Let me lean on you for a while. Are you feeling very uncomfortable? Maybe we should go to the hospital. No need. I didn't say anything and tensed my back. Not long after. His breathing gradually became steady, but still felt hot after hesitating for a while. I reached out to touch his forehead. It was hot. Asher? Did you not take the medicine? I did. His voice was hoarse. He raised his hand and put it on mine. It feels cool. I didn't dare to move it, seeing that the heat from his body had spread to mine. After a while, his cell phone rang. He didn't even look at it, just took it out and handed it to me casually. Help me check the message. The password is 981,120 me. Isn't it my birthday? It must be a coincidence. Besides, I've seen Asher's screensaver. The back view of the girl and his family. I checked the messages. It's from your company group. It says that General John from Xiaodan is here again. Just ignore him and don't bother about what he says. The meaning was obvious. They wanted me to reply on behalf of Asher. I carefully chose my words. Edited the message and sent it out, but after a long while, there was no reply in the group. I was just about to ask when a message popped up. Isn't this the tone of our boss? Boss, has your account been hacked? I then realized that I had habitually added the words, "Thanks for your hard work," at the end, which indeed wasn't the tone that a company leader should have. I seemed to have caused trouble. I showed him the chat record. Asher took a quick glance, the corners of his lips curled up a bit. He took the phone and typed out a line, "No hacking." My girlfriend replied for me, "Just do as she said." It would have been better if it were really hacked. I hesitated to say something. Do you mind? I don't really care, but if we break up in the future it won't be good for your image. You're quite considerate for me, perhaps because he was sick and uncomfortable. Asher didn't show much emotion. Why don't you go home and rest? It's too far away, driving would be tiring. My home is nearby, if you don't mind you can go there. After saying that, I regretted it. His company surely had a lounge. At worst, he could stay in a hotel anyway. It was better than going to my place. Okay. I took Asher back to my home. Just then, we met the eldest sister from the opposite door. Your boyfriend is here. What's his name again? Asher. Oh, I have to say he seems even more handsome. Asher pulled me, and we went inside. He wasn't in good spirits and his face was sickly pale. I took his temperature and it was a bit high. I found some fever medicine for him to take and went to the master bedroom to get my quilt for him. He fell asleep quickly. I went to the kitchen to cook a pot of porridge and fried to light dishes. When I brought them out, Asher just woke up. Have something to eat. I've sweated a lot. I'll take a shower first. After he went into the bathroom, I realized that there were no clothes for him to wear at home. Should I let him wear women's clothes? Just then, the doorbell rang. I thought it was the eldest sister from the opposite door, but when I opened the door, it was Silas. What are you doing here? Let's talk. There's nothing to talk about. I was about to close the door, but he put his hand in first. Cherry, I regret it. I thought Yuri was very important. But after I thought you had an accident, I realized that she was just an obsession that I couldn't have when I was young. Because of this obsession, I made too many mistakes. You've been in my life for a long time. I regret it even more that I left you alone on the mountain that day. That's the thing I regret the most in my life. If you hate me because of that, I accept it. But Cherry, I love you more than I thought. Stop playing around with me, okay? Give me a chance, come back to me, and let me make it up to you. My eyes became red, but not because of being touched. In the past, Silas never easily said he loved me. All his preferences were for Yuri. I thought I could always wait. Now that I've waited, I don't have the same feelings as before. It's too late. I don't want it anymore. I don't believe you don't love me anymore. You've done so many things for me. Cherry, who's here? Asher walked over. With only a towel around his waist, drops of water flowed down his firm abdominal muscles and disappeared. Oh, it's you. Cherry has cooked. Would you like to have something to eat together? After saying that, he put his arm around me and said in an ambiguous tone, I've cleaned up. You can do whatever you want with me, okay? His suggestive words made me blush deeply. The light in Silas' eyes dimmed bit by bit. And even his hand propping on the door dropped weakly. When a person asks you heartbrokenly whether you still love them or not, the other person's casual attitude makes it even more embarrassing. I took the opportunity to close the door. When I sent Asher away later, I saw cigarette butts all over the ground at the door that night. My phone kept ringing. It was Silas. When I blocked him, he borrowed other numbers to send me messages. I don't know how he got to know my new number. He kept calling me. When I turned off my phone, he ordered takeout for me. There were 7 or 8 takeout orders. And on each order, the remarks were all the same, Cherry, I don't mind being a mistress. As long as you're willing. The 3 of us can be together. The delivery guys looked at me with really strange eyes. I couldn't bear it anymore and dialed the number. One of his brothers answered the phone. Cherry, we've seen the relationship between you and Silas over the years. He really loves you. When he thought you had an accident, he almost lost his life. Are you really not going to give him a chance? At first you said that I wasn't suitable for him, now you say that I should give him a chance. You guys really say whatever you want. Cherry. Silas' voice came through, a voice full of pain and extremely humble. Please look at me again, okay? Silas, stop pestering me. It's really degrading. There was a pause on the other end of the phone. Do you really fall in love with Asher? Like what about him? I'll change to be like him. Come back to me, okay? I don't love you anymore, Silas. I really don't love you at all. Since that day, Silas hasn't come to pester me anymore. Life has been much quieter. When I was reading the planning book, I found that Asher had actually helped me revise it and put forward some pertinent and useful suggestions. Even the problems that had been bothering me for a long time were solved. I called him and he answered immediately. Asher, thank you. Let me treat you to a meal. Today? His voice was a bit low. Any time is okay. It depends on your schedule, by the way. My ears felt a bit hot. Last time after you took a shower, the underwear you changed is dry now. Do you still want it? If you do, I can send it to you. I checked the brand. It was quite expensive. Suddenly there was silence on the other side. Asher? Sorry. He coughed softly. The meeting is paused. He was in a meeting. I hung up immediately. He didn't call back but sent a voice message. If you really want to thank me, accompany me back to my old house on Saturday. I knew very little about Asher's family situation. I only knew that his parents passed away when he was in junior high school and there was a grandfather at home. Just to be cautious, I called Tom. You mean old Master Kai? Just go, you don't know he's so worried that Asher will never get married in his life. He's been looking forward to him having a girlfriend. Why do you say that? When Asher was in high school, he had a huge crush on a girl. He liked her so much that he even applied to the same university as her. But that girl had a boyfriend. Guess what Asher said to his grandfather? He said that if they were together, they could break up. And if they got married, they could divorce. Later. Asher seemed to lose interest in that girl. But he also didn't seem to have any intention of having a girlfriend, as her is the only heir in the Kai family. Old Master Kai was so worried that he tried his best to arrange blind dates for him. Any girl would do. It must be the girl in that painting. Suddenly I felt a bit envious of her to be firmly and persistently chosen by someone. I also felt a bit sour. In the blink of an eye it was the weekend. I went to Hai Bay with her went to park the car. While waiting for him I saw my mother coming back from buying groceries. The Yuri family, the Silas family and the Asher family all lived in this high-end community. Seeing that she was about to come in, I quickly walked out and dragged her to a deserted place. Finally willing to come back. I heard that you broke up with Silas, that, Eskaji swear in front of Yuri that you'll never be entangled with him again. That you'll never get back together with him. And ask her to forgive you, by the way. Wait until I dig up her family's ancestral grave before you say that. Okay. You won't go. Right? I know the company you work for. I'll go and make a scene there tomorrow. I'd like to see which company would want an employee like you who seduces other people's men. Helen. She was startled. I was so angry that I lost all my rationality. I just wanted to irritate her and make her stay away from my life. Since you want to go to extremes, right? Do you think you're the only one who can? I'll tell you here and now. I'm going to be entangled with Silas. I'm going to be with him all the time. How can I give the man I've loved for so many years to Yuri? Once I leave this community, I'll get back together with him if you push me too hard. I'll go and get the marriage certificate with him tomorrow. After saying that I turned around and walked away. But then I saw Asher standing not far away. He looked calm, but there were complicated emotions in his eyes that I couldn't understand. In the next second he turned around and left. I felt a sudden sense of panic. I started to run after him but stopped abruptly at the door. Did he hear that? How much did he hear? What would he think of me? Obviously we came back together today to see Asher's grandfather. But in this situation, how could I go in? Usually I was quite bold, but at this moment I didn't even have the courage to call him and ask. I stood there for an hour until my legs became stiff. Then I realized that perhaps the fake relationship between Asher and me as boyfriend and girlfriend had ended by now. I went home and briefly told my best friend about this. She thought for a moment. Cherry, don't tell me you've fallen in love with Asher. It was my turn to be silent. Do I love Asher? I carefully recalled every bit of the days when I was with him, from being distant at first to getting closer later, even entering each other's lives, and those unintentional ambiguous moments that always made me at a loss. If you like him, then like him. I think young Master Kai has a pretty clean relationship history. He has, much better than Silas. You might as well give it a try. In the middle of the night there was a knock on the door. It was Asher. He was wearing the clothes from the day and his expression was gloomy. About what happened during the day? I opened my eyes wide and looked at him in disbelief as he kissed me. The smell of cigarettes and alcohol on him rushed over at the same time. I reached out to push him away with tears in my eyes. It's choking. Bear with it. Even though he said that he didn't kiss me again. Instead he turned around to leave. Asher. I chased after him for a couple of steps but he stopped me. I had never seen such an expression in his eyes, restrained. Forbearing yet also like indulgence. Cherry. Don't come any closer. I'm not sure what I'll do. I clenched and then loosened my fingers. I took a step forward. In the next sec, and he pulled me into his arms. There was a stinging pain on my lips and the taste of blood filled my mouth. Before I knew it, Asher's breath moved to my neck, but suddenly he stopped all his movements. I followed his gaze and saw that he was staring at the tattoo on my shoulder blade. SLO, the abbreviation of Silas' name. When I was young, when I loved someone, I wanted to engrave it permanently. I thought he would have a chance to see it someday. Unfortunately, Silas didn't see it and he didn't know. And we went our separate ways. You love him that much? Asher's fingertips touched the tattoo. I felt itchy and tried to avoid it, but he held me firmly, and I couldn't move. Has he seen it? Has he ever kissed you like I did? After saying that, he stared at my lips, his eyes dimmed inch by inch, and he kissed me again. Tell me again. Who do you want to love and be with? I don't. His kiss fell again, blocking my words of explanation. Don't say it. I can't bear to hear it. There was only one last step left. Asher tidied up my messy hair for me, adjusted the straps of my slip dress, and then sent me inside the house before leaving. Don't see me off. It's cold outside. I grasped the corner of his clothes. Asher paused in his steps, turned his head to look at me, and said, Cherry, can I take it that you're trying to ask me to stay? For an adult woman to ask an adult man to stay in the middle of the night, one can easily imagine what that implies. I was a bit flustered in my heart. I let go of his clothes, but instead my hand was grasped by him. Asher came back. I'm taking it seriously. The moment the door closed, his kiss fell, but it just stopped right on my lips. Let's take a bath together. At the last moment he propped his arms on both sides of my body, his eyes straightforward and bold. Cherry, who am I? Asher. Asher. Say it again. Honey. From the bedroom to the sofa, then to the living room floor and to the bathroom. I felt like I was dying. Having felt lying, sighing. I don't want to take a bath anymore. One last time. The next day when I woke up, my body felt as if it had been run over by something. Every part of it was sore. I got up and Asher had already left, leaving a note behind. There's soy milk in the soy milk maker and steamed buns in the pot. Remember to eat them also. The medicine is on the table. The words that Asher had forced me to say last night rang in my mind. And my ears gradually turned red after I had breakfast. He called. Neither of us said anything at first. Finally, he was the first to speak. Do you regret it? There was a bit of cautious probing in his tone. It turned out that in this relationship, I wasn't the only one who was confused and uneasy. Even someone as arrogant as Asher could feel inferior in a relationship. I felt a sharp pain in my heart and replied honestly. No, I'm just a bit shy. He laughed. Cherry, we have a long way to go. You'll have to get used to it. I went to the tattoo parlor to have my tattoo removed. Coincidentally, a TV show about a real and fake heiress was on. On a whim, I went to a DNA testing institution after that. On my way back to the studio, I remembered that I hadn't explained to Asher what happened last night. So I edited a message and sent it to him. The words you read yesterday were deliberately said by me to provoke my mother. They're not true. I did think about getting married to Silas before. But after that incident on the mountain, I completely gave up that idea. I don't like to be indecisive. What's past is past. Asher must have been busy. He only replied with got it when I arrived at the studio. I casually turned off my phone and started drawing designed rafts until it was time to get off work. Asher came to pick me up. Shall we go to your place or mine? I remembered the intense experience last night and still felt a bit scared. Can't we just go back to our own homes? Okay, we'll go to my place then. This guy. I won't touch you tonight. As it turned out, you can't trust a man's words at all. When he carried me out of the bathroom, I was so sleepy that I could hardly open my eyes. He was still full of energy. He gave me a kiss on my forehead and said, Cherry, let's get married. I was startled awake. Isn't it too soon? Asher's eyes instantly turned cold. You don't want to? No, that's not it. He stared at me for a moment, then suppressed his emotions. Go to sleep. He turned off the light, and the room was plunged into darkness. He was angry. I thought for a while and gently poked him. He grasped my finger, his voice hoarse. Don't move around randomly. I said okay, and tried to pull my hand back, but he hugged me tightly. My mother doesn't like me very much. I still can't get rid of her for now. If I marry you, I'm afraid she'll become even more reckless and treat you badly. I don't want you to encounter something unpleasant because of me. You shouldn't be dragged into these messy things because of me. Falling in love is a matter between two people, while getting married involves two families. Is that the only reason? She's really difficult to deal with. I said seriously. She might try to extort money from you. And it might also affect your company's image. She'll act like a crazy woman, regardless of the occasion or place. And there's no way to reason with her. So my Cherry has been having such a hard time. My eyes felt a bit sour. Well, not really. I'm good at my studies and have won a lot of scholarships. I've saved them all up and haven't treated myself badly. How smart. I've thought about the future. It's not just that you plan to play with me and then leave. He pinched my nose and took the flowers from me. Cherry, I've given you my innocence. No one else will want me. You're not allowed to play around. I'm not. How obedient good kids deserve rewards. Hey, hadn't fulfilled my obsession. Don't pull my pajamas. But he stopped when he saw a red patch on my shoulder blade. Did you go to have it removed today? Of course I should have it removed. I'm with you now. What's the point of keeping a tattoo with my ex's name on it? Besides, I don't want you to be unhappy. Asher. Falling in love should be a happy thing. I hope that in this relationship, what you feel for me is something beautiful. Are you trying to tempt me? Cherry, love me. Soon, let out a low sigh. Asher and I didn't have time to be affectionate with each other. He was busy with work, and my studio also received design rests with a tight schedule. I spent days and nights drawing design drawings. It was already half a month later when I handed in the drawings. I stretched myself and saw Yuri coming. We went to the coffee shop next door. Cherry. You're still as annoying as before. Your mother doesn't love you, and Silas doesn't want you. Can't you just obediently Zhang Cheng and stop being an eyesore? Am I an eyesore to you? That's good if you're unhappy. You. Yuri paused for a moment and then smiled smugly. Do you really think you'll be happy with Asher? You and your mother are just dots of the Yuri family who would fall in love with a dog? Let me tell you another thing. Asher had someone he loved deeply in high school. You'll be abandoned sooner or later, just like that night when you were abandoned by Silas. So, after Silas abandoned me, did he want you? Yuri's face changed, and she was furious. To tell you the truth, that night, I did it on purpose. I just didn't want Silas to accompany you. I also did a lot of things to make your mother treat you harshly, and your mother actually listened to me. Isn't it amazing? Let me tell you one more thing. I don't even have depression. It doesn't matter if you know. Go ahead and tell others that. See who will believe you. After saying that, Yuri got up and left. I didn't bring my phone when I went out, and Yuri obviously knew that otherwise, she wouldn't have said those things. I looked at my best friend at the next table, and she gave me an okay gesture. On the weekend, Asher and I went back to his old house. Just as Tom said, Asher's grandfather was easy to get along with and kind to others. But it was all too smooth, so smooth that I felt a bit uneasy in my heart. Asher noticed my thoughts and held my hand. Cherry, trust me. The things you're worried about won't happen. Even if they do, I'll be here. Whether it was for comfort or something else, I felt much better. And next day, I was drawing design drawings in the studio as usual. Cherry, you're on the hot search. Look quickly. I opened the app and it was the top trending topic. The daughter of an Annie disgusting someone took a picture of Asher and me holding hands and going back to the Kai family last night. And there were also photos of me sitting intimately with Silas before. I thought she was the daughter of some group. Turns out she's just the daughter of an Annie impressive. To be honest, her methods are really something ordinary people can't even get close to. Nancy Bayan. Nancy Bayan have a good relationship. Right? Doesn't she feel uncomfortable? Think outside the box. She's just playing around. Maybe she's in the business of selling herself. I know that girl, we were in the same class. She chased after Silas when she was at school. She's so shameless. Netizens even dug out my information, the places where I went to school, the places where I worked before, and where I lived. Cherry, don't listen to their nonsense. These online trolls just spout rubbish without knowing the real situation. Just then, a harsh noise came from the door of my best friend, and I went out and saw that the door of the studio had been splashed with paint. The lucky tree at the entrance had been cut in half at the waist, and its leaves were scattered all over the ground. There was also some unknown liquid on the ground, getting off a stinking smell. No way in broad daylight, these people are going too far. I'm going to call the police. Close the door first. After closing the studio, I immediately dialed Asher's number almost at the same time he was also calling me. Are you okay? Will the hot search thing affect your company? We both spoke at the same time. I replied first, I'm fine. Everything is normal in the company. Mr. Kai. There's a call. Mr. Kai, Mr. Zhang called to ask about the hot search. The phone was taken away by Zhang Yan. I didn't hear what was said later, but I could guess. Such a big thing must have an impact. You go ahead with your work. I'm really okay. Don't run around. I'll ask the company to pick you up and take you home. Call me whenever you have something. Okay, my work was forced to stop. I called the police, but in fact it's not easy for the police to intervene in this kind of thing. After finishing the record and going home, when I checked again in the afternoon, the public opinion had changed a bit, but it was even more serious. Don't you know? Cherry is a mistress. Do you know the Yuri family? That's the Yuri family that gave her mother the nanny job. Yuri and Silas were originally a couple. Cherry shamelessly snatched her boyfriend away, which led to her depression at X, and she almost died several times. Yuri also came out to speak. It's all in the past thanks to my family who have always been with me. I've moved on. Instantly the netizens' anger was ignited. Netizens almost gave me a persona of being vain and having a bad character. I commented with my account. The two families have grudges, and neither of the parents wants their children to have contact with each other. Moreover, Silas has never really been with the daughter of the Yuri family. I didn't interfere in their relationship or snatch her boyfriend. Unfortunately no one listened to what I said. Liar. My mother works in the Yuri family. Her mother has confirmed it. He has done a lot of things to her. Yuri. Hurting a mental patient. Is she even human? Why doesn't this kind of person just die? Cherry should die. I remembered some things when I first arrived at the Yuri family because I was well behaved and sensible. I was quite liked by Yuri's father. Until Yuri strangled the dog she had raised for years and framed me for it. He threw dead mice on her own bed and said that I did it. She would deliberately go out in the cold winter to catch a cold and then say that I had coaxed her to go out. And my mother Helen would help her prove my evil deeds. Coincidentally, the result of the DNA test also came out. I sorted out the materials and released them. It caused a huge stir. Damn it. I bet there's a plot twist. At the same time, someone released the news that my mother and Yuri's mother gave birth in the same hospital at the same time. Everyone on the internet was like a detective. Based on my years of watching TV dramas, isn't it possible that Cherry is actually the real daughter of the Yuri family? Combined with what was said before, Cherry's mother has always protected the daughter of the Yuri family and slandered her own daughter. It all adds up. Here's a suggestion for Yuri: she should also do a paternity test. Otherwise, she won't be able to convince the netizens. Netizens crazily tagged Yuri and asked her to show the test report, but she didn't respond at all. Instead, my mother kept calling me. I ignored her calls for a while before answering. Cherry, what on earth do you want to do? When did you go for the paternity test? Now, immediately tell the netizens that it's forged by you. What are you afraid of? Are you afraid that Yuri's identity will be discovered? Well, let her answer the phone. Yuri won't answer your call if anything happens to her. I won't let you off. The call was hung up. On my phone screen the recording showed 1 minute and 18 seconds. I directly posted it online. Damn it. It's conclusive evidence. And they're even threatening people. I'm not kidding. I suggest looking into that woman. Even my best friend was so shocked that she couldn't say a word. Cherry is really having the worst luck in the world, running into such a mother and daughter. To be honest, Cherry's character is really questionable. It hasn't been long since she broke up with the young master of the Silas family. And now she's hooked up with the young master of the Kai family. I didn't expect that Zhang Yan would directly comment using his own account. The Qing dynasty has long perished. If you want to remain chaste for your ex-boyfriend, why don't you apply to the government for a chastity arch? This ID. Damn it. It's Asher. What the hell, a chastity arch? Boss Guy really knows how to retort when arguing with others. Boss Guy has sent lawyers' letters to all those who cursed Cherry. I just want to ask, were so many lawyers' letters bought in bulk? 2 days later the news that Helen killed her husband to defraud insurance was exposed. My father was an engineering diver back then. However, due to the rupture of the oxygen tube when he went underwater, he died accidentally and couldn't come back up. Helen received a huge compensation of 2 million yuan. Unexpectedly, that was the truth. The police got involved in the investigation. Not long after Helen was arrested and sentenced to life imprisonment, Yuri also moved out of the Yuri family, and her whereabouts were unknown. Fortunately, my studio received a lot of orders. I didn't expect that Silas would be the first one to come to me. He brought a bouquet of roses. I'm sorry. I hurt you many times before because I believed what Yuri said. I've already forgotten about it. Give me a chance. It seems that we've never had a proper meal together. Come to think of it, every time I was alone with Silas he would always leave halfway for various reasons. I looked at the man behind him with an unfriendly look and smiled. No need. My boyfriend will be unhappy. I didn't take the bouquet of roses and ran towards Asher. Are you done with your work? Asher took a look at Silas and said in a cold tone, do you have time to gossip with others? Don't you have time to come to me? He was really jealous. I stood on tiptoe and kissed him on the cheek, saying seriously, I've been waiting for you all the time, waiting for you to come to me after you're done with your work. These days, because of my affairs, I've caused a lot of trouble for you and your company. I'm afraid that if I take the initiative to find you, it will put you in a difficult position." Asher smiled. "Cherry, am I that lovesick? Aren't you? But people online say that you're lovesick." I said seriously, "Asher, thank you for helping me find those pieces of evidence. Otherwise it wouldn't have been so easy for Helen to be arrested. Is this all the thanks I get? Then how should I thank you? You know how. Asher and I also got our marriage certificate. It's just that neither Asher nor I had a holiday, so we postponed the wedding after receiving the news of our marriage. Yuri's father came with gifts. Actually, he had come to see me several times before, but I didn't meet him. Cherry. This is the wedding gift from Uncle." It was a set of very precious jewelry. "Also, if you're willing, we can go to get an authorization another day, and you can also move back to the Yuri family." "Uncle Yuri. My name is Cherry." The light in Yuri's father's eyes dimmed little by little. "I misunderstood you before and said a lot of mean things to you. It's my fault. Uncle apologizes to you. It's all in the past." Uncle John opened his mouth but didn't say anything in the end and left as her came out and followed my gaze. "Have you made up your mind? Don't you plan to go back?" "No." During the days when I was misunderstood in the Yuri family, I actually went to Yuri's father to explain. At that time, the people in the Yuri family bullied me when I came back late from evening self-study. Someone would deliberately lock the door and not let me in. I sprained my ankle several times when climbing over the wall. Even worse, they would make sarcastic remarks in front of me and give me some dirty reputations. At that age, that was the most terrifying and helpless thing. I thought that Yuri's father should be fair. I went to him to explain and wanted justice. I'll always remember the look of disgust and contempt in his eyes. "Cherry, if many people don't like you, it means that the problem lies with you. One's origin doesn't mean much. But if you're willing to degenerate and have bad morals because of it, and no one can save you. With your character like this, I should have driven you out long ago. It's all because of your mother's hard work for you that I let you stay. You should behave yourself." I said seriously to Asher. "I hold grudges." "I know." As if trying to divert my attention, Asher opened his collar, revealing the red marks on his collarbone, and said in an ambiguous tone, "I know you hold grudges." I blushed. "It's not like you didn't bite there first." Actually, I never knew when Asher fell in love with me. I asked him many times, but he refused to tell me. The more he didn't tell me, the more curious I became. Until one time, at 2 o'clock in the morning, the client sent me a message asking me to revise the manuscript. I got up with a lot of resentment and went to revise it. After wandering around in the study for a long time, I found that I didn't bring my computer back. I used Asher's computer. He had just used it before going to bed and forgot to turn it off. His social media account was also logged in. When I finished revising, packaged it, and switched to my own account to send an email, suddenly I saw a familiar account. This account had a Blake nickname. I could even recite the numbers backwards at the beginning. When I was chasing Silas and wanted one of his social media accounts, he gave me this one. After adding it, I found that there was nothing on it. I would occasionally send him goodnight messages. Sometimes when I encountered something especially happy, I would also share it with him. Later, this account replied to me, and we had a heated chat. During that period of time, I was having a hard time. Whenever I complained a little, he would patiently comfort me. I thought it was Silas. I thought I had glimpsed his world of being cold on the outside but warm on the inside. Was the owner of this account actually Asher? So, all along, I had mistaken the person. I didn't tell Asher about this. Just then, our studio completed an order with good profits. Besides, we hadn't had a rest for 3 months. My best friend and I unanimously decided to give ourselves 2 days off. When I got home, Asher was unexpectedly there. He was sitting by the window, holding a paintbrush in his hand. In front of him was the painting of the girl's back view. He added the back view of a boy to it. The people in the painting looked happy, and the person painting couldn't hide the doting look in his eyes. I felt a bit sour in my heart. Perhaps it was because of Asher's unconditional love these days that gave me the courage to speak out directly. "I don't like this painting. And your phone screensaver, did you change them both together? You asked me not to keep anything related to Silas. What about you?" I don't mind your past, but you can't bring far. We be already got our marriage certificate, yet you're here reminiscing about your ex-girlfriend and even painting yourself in it. What do you mean by this? Asher was silent for a moment. Don't you really see it? I see it. You miss her very much. After saying that, I walked out. If I stayed any longer, I might not be able to resist tearing it up. Coincidentally, Asher pulled me back. He pushed me onto the chair. Take a good look. Who do you think I'm thinking of? This scene. It seemed a bit familiar. I said uncertainly, could it be that time when Silas had his birthday by the seaside? Oh, you remember it so clearly. Cherry, who is the one who can't forget their ex after all? The person in the painting was actually me? I didn't. If you didn't, how could you remember his birthday so clearly? If I remember correctly, he came to your studio a few days ago and wanted you to design a logo for him. Right? I refused him. Wait. I stared at him with bright eyes. When did you fall in love with me? Asher's eyes flickered. Just in the past half year. Wasn't it that time by the seaside? Otherwise, why did you paint me? I just remembered. No wonder you invited me to your 18th birthday party and said those words to me. Weren't you drunk at all? Asher's ears turned red. See her, but don't tell. There's one more thing. I felt a bit embarrassed to say it. That time when I met you and bought condoms. Who did you use them with? Asher's lip changed. Do you think that size would fit me? It seemed. Not. So for such a long time, you didn't feel it? It's my fault. I didn't try hard enough. I heard the news about Yuri again from Tom. She and Silas seemed to be together. But not long after, they had a conflict. Yuri took a knife and Silas was seriously injured. He was rushed to the emergency room on the spot. Yuri was arrested for intentional injury. By the way, sister-in-law Tom saw Asher go to the bathroom midway and pulled me aside. Actually, Asher liked you a long time ago. As I told you before, Asher had a girl he liked very much in high school. And that was you, unfortunately. At that time, you were only focused on Silas. He was strictly supervised and didn't have many opportunities. Also, that time when you asked Silas for a social media account, I was sitting next to him. He asked a group of people who wanted to add you, and he gave out the account. Asher added it after adding it. He warned the people present not to add you. I know. Thank you. Then, sister-in-law, could you introduce your best friend to me? When Asher came back, he was carrying a cake in his hand. I remembered that on the way here just now, I accidentally pointed to a cake shop by the roadside that had a good business and said that I hadn't eaten cake for a long time. I felt warm in my heart. Asher, what's the matter? When we hold our wedding, let Tom sit at the main table. How lucky. It was him at the beginning and it's also him in the end.